Espinoza-Lyng has been on my program before, and she is back again today because busier than usual, busier than, well, most people. Welcome back to Raging Elephants Radio, Maria.
Thank you for inviting me, Heidi. It's great to be back.
All right, so you're back into the mix. I know that you were very engaged during the election season, and I've been getting some emails now from you on your latest endeavors, and I really wanted to bring you on the air to tell my audience what it is that you're up to now. So let's go ahead and get started on that.
Okay, and thank you for your report. I caught part of it there. Finally got my computer to do what I needed to do. So thank you. People need to know what's taking place and the truth. But last week we went up to L.A. for the Jamil Shaw family's grassroots Remembrance Day, and that was a sad, of course, whenever we come on the air, it's always some bad news and all. However, if we don't keep pushing it, the media, mainstream media, won't do it. And a lot of these stories of killings of Americans by illegal aliens stays local. So Americans cannot connect the dots and really understand what is happening in their own communities. And many of these people who are the killers are construction workers or floor layers by day. So we were up in L.A. Memorializing the memories of Jamil Shaw II. And I tell you, it's just really tough for that family, for the Jamil Shaw family. We had probably about 25 or 30 people there. A lot fewer people than the 300 plus that fill that neighborhood when young Jamil was killed and executed. But we went up to support them. We also are working with them to build their Stone Life Quilt banners in their state. I did leave half of our inventory for a starter set for them because that group is very active. And they're coming around from different areas in California. In fact, there is a group called We the People Rising actually came up and joined the visual, and her name is Robin Hivitzen up there. And Rafael Cruz was at an event there in the San Diego area, I believe, there too, when the same weekend I was there.
Well, you said something about your visit there that kind of caught my attention. You said that Jamil was executed. I don't know what happened there. What happened there?
Yes. Jamil Shaw was a 17-year-old high school student and athlete. Rutgers and, I don't remember. Stanford were looking at him for a scholarship. And he was on his way home. In fact, he was murdered just 2 doors down from his home. His father heard the shots. And the man who killed him had just been released from jail not 24 hours before he killed Jamil. And his mission for that day was to go out and kill a black person.
Why?
And
was it a gang, like a gang initiation?
He was in a gang. Jamil was not in a gang. He was, the man who killed him was in a gang. They were driving around the area, and Jamil, Mr. Shaw, lives in a nice area. I expected something different. I thought, L.A. gangs and bad neighborhood, real seedy, maybe down the street. No, it was a nice, well-manicured area. This family did everything they could, did everything they were supposed to be doing, and our government was not protecting his child. In fact, Jamil's mother was serving in Iraq when her son was killed. So she was protecting our country. Our country was not protecting her son.
So she's in the military. She's an active duty service member. Her son is at home. He's obviously a gifted athlete. I'm presuming this is for football? For Rutgers and Stanford football?
Yes.
And he had the world at his feet. His family lives in a nice area where you would think that gang violence would not invade. And 2 doors down from where he lives, he is gunned down by a man who had previously just gotten out of jail and was seeking initiation in a gang.
Mm-hmm. And look at this. The police department released him into our communities even though he was illegal in the country.
Well, that's par for the course, though, Maria. I mean, they're not even
Absolutely.
asking.
No, we can't sit back and accept that.
No, of course not.
Yeah. So the vigil is even more reason to keep these tragedies in the forefront. And Mr. Shaw is very determined. It's very, very difficult, as you can imagine, for the families to come forward and do what he's doing. I mean, each time they even talk about it, it's opening that wound.
But I don't understand why someone like Jamil, with his family's standing in the community and his own as an athlete and student, why do we not know anything about him, but we heard all about Trayvon Martin? Why is it that we don't hear anything about Jamil?
Exactly. And that's really sad. And I'm so glad that you and George and Claver and Doc are working so hard, and we're going to do all we can to share your program nationwide as well, because we need conservatives to speak out and tell the truth that mainstream media is not doing it. Maybe up until something happens to their own families. The same thing with these representatives. Maybe not until something happens to their families are they willing to do something. It's chaotic, it's crazy, it doesn't make any sense. And Jamil was doing everything right. They did everything possible. They were, close family and keeping their kids close to home and very engaged with them. And that's the American dream. And quickly gone, just like that. And Mr. Shaw was the first person, of course, there to his son's side and held him. We just have to get involved and do something, no matter if it's, helping your group, our group. We have to do something, not simply listen and say, oh, that's terrible, and shake our heads. Well, let's get active. And that's part of the reason we went up there as well, because we did meet, and we are going to meet with our state directors. In the past 2 months, Heidi, we've been to South Carolina. We went to the Immigration Coalition, South Carolina Tea Party Coalition Convention. Saw a couple Texans up there. South Carolina, Denver, Florida, and California. So we're very serious, as you know, and we're just getting out there and making sure that the state directors have our support, and we're all on the same page, because we want the same thing. We want to be able to move together in uniform and be stronger in that way.
When I think back to George W. Bush's tenure as president, there were multiple websites and multiple groups that kind of kept this grim, ghoulish count of tragedies in the Middle East, and deaths and maimings and whatnot. And they had little tickers that would kind of keep going up, and they would keep track of Iraqis who were killed in their own country, but never differentiating whether they were killed by their own. There were far more Iraqis killed by their own fellow countrymen than were killed by our troops, certainly in the communities and the shopping areas and the markets and whatnot. And I thought, why does nobody care about it here when it happens in our own country? We have more people dying in our own country at the hands of those who have invaded illegally, and nobody seems to care. Nobody's keeping track. We don't have anybody out there bringing news of an update. The 1,000th person killed by illegal aliens on the nighttime news. As far as I know, Maria, you're the only ones that are actually tracking this and putting the stories together and memorializing these people and these tragedies.
Well, there are other groups. There is a website called ojjpac.org. That's Ohio Justice and Jobs for Justice PAC, ojjpac.org, and that is Steve Salvi out in Ohio. Then there is a VOYAC website that we call VOYAC, and they too keep track of some of this. However, and some of the crimes, we are specific and well focused on the killings. Heidi, we don't even touch on the huge numbers of child molestation and rape that occur. It is just out of this world, the number of lives that this demographic touches and ruins.
Oh, no, I can't.
And you're absolutely right, because look, we don't need to import any more crime. The United States has enough crime of its own. Look at Chicago.
Yeah.
Let's start there. Or Houston. I mean, Houston too. So let's not import crime. Let's just get a hold of our security, our national security first. And also, if you're pro-life, then you have to be against this reform and illegal alien invasion that's taking place now, because we need to protect the lives that are born right and on this earth right now.
Yeah. All right, Maria, can I keep you through the break? Because I do want to ask you about what was happening with these deportees. And I'm wondering if you can give me some insight and to my listeners as well. Can you come back after the break?
Yes, and this is about the Otay Mesa issue?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay, I guess I will. Thank you.
Okay, fantastic. Folks, I am talking to Maria Espinoza-Lyng of the Remembrance Project. She has returned from some traveling, and I asked her for an update. She's also going to give us some insight onto a situation that will probably chap your hide just a little bit. And we'll be back right after these messages. Don't go anywhere. Back. You're listening to Heidi Thiess on Raging Elephants Radio, and my guest today is Maria Espinoza-Lyng of the Remembrance Project. She has been traveling, and she's bringing us some updates from some of the latest breaking news and some of the latest developments. And as you know, the Remembrance Project memorializes those who've lost their lives to illegal aliens in the country illegally. So let's go back to Maria. Maria, right before we went to break, I mentioned Otay Mesa, and I wanted to get your insight on that because you sent me an email with an update to that situation, and I was wondering if you could give the background to my listeners, because I think that if they hear about this, they will, they need to know what's going on.
Okay, we received this article from our Oregon State Director, and she alerted to this, and the article is about the National Immigration Youth Alliance is attempting to travel to Otay Mesa, California, in order to bring people from the Mexican side across. And, you know, they're really pushing the envelope here. It's sort of like that Dream 9. And they want to bring, this article says, 100 people will come across with their help. And so we've been calling Border Patrol. We've been calling the communications director. I have been texting this weekend with a detective there in the San Diego area, and to warn him that this is coming and to ask them what their plan is and if they will go ahead and block these people from crossing illegally, because as we know and what is taking place everywhere is that they're claiming political asylum. And I was on the phone this morning with someone in there in California who said that they are prepared for this, border run, for lack of a better statement here, and that they do have agents that are in place and customs in order to interview people should they ask and claim political asylum, because they just can't come across, I've been told, and say they fear for their lives. They have to have some sort of proof and be able to talk specifics. I guess that would be the proof in order to be given political asylum.
Okay, so let me fill in the backstory for my listeners. The article that Maria is referencing that came out of Oregon basically highlighted a group called Bring Them Home, and they were making a huge effort, and apparently it's their third and largest effort thus far, to head to the border with their allies and other immigrants, where they join with hundreds of others from all over the United States to support the crossing of at least 150, possibly more, deportees that they have been deported, and now they're trying to come back into the country from Mexico. Now, the illegal aliens that are trying to come back have families who live in cities around the U.S., and they're going to attempt to cross at this Otay, O-T-A-Y, Mesa, point of entry, on March 10th. So these guys have been deported from cities around the country. The ones that go down there to support them wear T-shirts that say undocumented, unafraid, unapologetic. And this is a group called Bring Them Home. Apparently we are the home, and they want to bring them back into the country. And one of the organizers said, I'm not going to wait until legislation tells me when I can reunite with my family. We're not playing around, so we're going to take justice, quote, into their own hands, apparently, and we're going to do what we feel is right. This is an article that is basically showcasing the efforts of Bring Them Home, and they're no longer just talking about reuniting families. They want to expand their operations to include anyone willing to try and cross the border. So that was the backstory behind this article that Maria was talking about. So Maria, you in your capacity undertook efforts to contact a detective in Otay Mesa. And what were the results of that conversation?
Well, they ensured us that they would do all they could and that they were aware of what was taking place, because we had all of our national directors call in and a few select volunteers who are active and would pick up the phone. So we included phone numbers and who to call and to report any updates or responses that they received. And so we sent an update with the responses. It was a good response. We wanted to let them know that we are watching and that we expect them to protect American citizens. And the last question to them was, do they need any help? And that was basically posed to them because there are hundreds of these people possibly can show up. And we saw a video, as you probably saw that video, where there were probably 200 people on the Mexican side throwing rocks and rushing the border.
Yes.
Exactly. So we did not want this to happen again. And also, show support for our Border Patrol. Now that there has been change of, what is it called? Come to me, but where the Border Patrol has basically been told to stand down. And that's happening over and over. So we want to, as citizens, we want to show our support for those who protect our country. And also to let them know, should you need any help, we have citizens who are willing to come out and do what they can. Safety first, of course, but it makes them aware that we are pretty serious.
Okay, so he said basically they had it all under control, that they planned on enforcing state laws, and that Border Patrol and ICE would enforce federal laws. And he asked you further if you guys were going to counter-protest.
Yes, and we were not going to counter-protest. We can't be everywhere. There are going to be people there from different groups in the area who will be videoing. We certainly don't want to get in their way, and we don't want to put any citizens in danger. So we will look to see if we can get some footage if it takes place, and we'll be sharing that.
Okay, you just referenced in your last comment the latest developments that Border Patrol is or has been basically asked to change their operations to quote unquote run away if things get violent or if things get heated, and that they're supposed to escape and leave the area. Do you have any insights on that?
No, that's just a shame. It just doesn't make any sense whatsoever. When do we stop running, Heidi? When do we stop standing up for our American citizens, for our children? When do we enforce orders that every other country and third world country enforces?
Well, this was in the Daily Caller. The article that I'm referencing is that the Department of Homeland Security tells American border guards to run away from illegal immigrants hurling rocks at them or fleeing in vehicles, and that they're supposed to stand down and not fire. Quote, agents shall not discharge firearms in response to thrown or hurled projectiles. Agents should obtain a tactical advantage in these situations, such as seeking cover or distancing themselves, i.e. running away. Agents were also directed to keep their weapons holstered when drug smugglers, get that, drug smugglers drive by.
This is crazy. This is how Brian Terry was murdered as well. How many more good Americans who are doing the right thing, Heidi, trying to protect our borders and their families, our families, how many more need to die before we use some common sense?
Top administration officials have directed 21,000 Border Patrol officers to retreat whenever illegal immigrants throw rocks at them and to avoid getting in front of foreign drug smugglers' vehicles as they head north with their drug shipments. They're basically telling them to stand down, let them pass. Now, I've heard from people who are daily involved in operations on the border who said that they expect with this kind of indication or this kind of signal from Department of Homeland Security and from the highest officials in government, they expect violence to escalate as drug smugglers and human smugglers intensify operations, knowing that if they heat it up a little bit, Border Patrol is supposed to fall back and to run away. What do you think of that take on this situation? You just mentioned Brian Terry. This is exactly what happened when he lost his life. Do you concur with that? Do you think we'll see an increase in violence as these smuggling operations intensify their operations, hoping to drive away law enforcement?
Absolutely, absolutely. And all the people living along the border, Arizona and Texas and everywhere, are going to be pushed back even farther. You go to South areas, you see how far north, they're 70 miles north of the border, and how much traffic they get. They're going to be pushed right out of their own land and out of their homes. So this is serious business, and our government is allowing it, and every representative and in statewide and national is responsible. They need to step up and say, you have to do something. We can't stand back, Heidi. They can't stand back and say this is a federal issue when it affects people in Texas and Arizona. No, we have to do something. And we need to all be calling. Your representatives should be on your speed dial right now. You should be calling and say this, and we can't shrug it off. This is serious. Do we wait until they're in our own backyards? They're already in our communities.
Well, and this is where
kidnapping Americans as well. I mean, they have been for years.
You know, and this is something that I think my listeners have an advantage on is when you just said, do we have to wait for it to be in our own backyard? Many of our listeners are well aware of how far this war zone has encroached into the lives of Texans. And based on the comments that I've seen coming out from the chat room and from the listeners, they understand that it is absolutely unacceptable, intolerable what our fellow Texans are forced to live in this war zone with their properties, their lives, their livelihoods at stake, and that this is a proper invasion. This is not just euphemistic. This is not just a term we use, to incite racial backlash. When I think someone, who was it? What politician was it that used the word invasion? Was it? It might have been Dan Patrick, or maybe it was Mitt Romney at one point, and there was this big racial backlash, when in fact my listeners and those on Raging Elephants Radio know that there has been a strategic military assessment that proves that our international borders are a war zone. I mean, it is going on third world violence and brutalism down there. I just
Absolutely.
Have you heard that that Dan Patrick, speaking of which, is supposed to be debating Hooligan Castro on the topic of illegal immigration?
I haven't. You know, we've been busy down here in the trenches, but it's something that I might try to go to. I just felt that some of these representatives have been in office for a long time, and they haven't done anything. You know, I kind of wonder if they will do anything if they get reelected. But I wanted to mention one thing, because we're talking, and I mentioned Arizona and Texas. However, people need to know as well that in small towns like North Carolina and Nebraska, all over, they've got huge problems there. And in fact, just last year, if you recall, 93-year-old Louise Sullivan was raped and murdered by an illegal alien who had come through Mexico, and he'd only been in the States for a few months, less than 3 months. He came in through Houston, I believe it was a Houston or San Antonio roofing company, who then put him to work in Nebraska. And that is where this rape and murder of a 93-year-old woman took place. He beat her to death. So in North Carolina, there are small towns there that have been just taken over, and it's just a rat's nest, if you will, of crime and seedy that people, North Carolinians, don't even go through there anymore. So it's everywhere.
Now, this weekend, there is an event going on that you are going to be attending, Patriots Rally for Freedom?
Yes, and I believe I will be speaking right before the lunch hour, the lunch break. So
okay.
I do invite everyone to go there, and George, as you know, will be there as well, and I guess he's been promoting it, so great job. And George is always a good person to go to for this information. He's been in a long time, very knowledgeable man.
Well, that's true. He did a 2-hour complete synopsis of a solution for illegal immigration reform from the perspective of a Tejano. And he offered this freely one night, and we did a good job of marketing his program. And for those who are listening, you can go to the archives and look through George's archives for that program, where he offered solutions, workable solutions from the perspective of a Tejano. So I will give more information to folks about this event, but I wanted him to know that you're going to be there as well, Maria. El Conservador George Rodriguez will be there this weekend. What is the location on that? I've got it here. I've got it pulled up in front of me. I can give all that information to folks.
Okay, I'll let you do that. But I wanted to say too, Heidi, that it is important to hear Hispanics reach out and speak up. And that's one thing that we're doing as well. Being able to connect with people nationally. There are many Hispanics in this cause in this movement. So I'm going to be highlighting different Hispanics and what they are doing. Some are authors, some are very successful radio talk show hosts, some are just, a family, a grandmother, but they're doing something and they're making a difference. So that's very important. And that is also one of the reasons we went to LA, last weekend, is to organize more and to let people know and encourage everyone that, look, we have come a long way. So we need to stop and acknowledge to ourselves that we've done a lot. Is there more work to do? Yes. We're just going to dig a little deeper. But look, we're not the same people we were, Heidi, 2 years ago or 5 years ago. Look at yourself. I mean, look where you are. Who would have thought it?
I know.
And I tell people, I like my other life. I like just being able to relax and thinking everything was just wonderful. But once you pull back that curtain, there is no going back.
I know. If only I could be like Obama, who goes golfing while the world erupts in war. I mean, I don't know how the guy can focus on his golf swing when the Ukraine and Russia are at each other's throats, but he manages it, and he manages to get his me time. How do we get me time, Maria?
Well, we have changed our friends, and we're not the same people. We've changed our friends. They're more, they're conservative. We go to coffee shops or restaurants who we know are conservative. I hate to say that, maybe, but I feel more comfortable there.
Yeah.
I know that all the work that I'm doing is for naught, and I'm not going to contribute to those who are working against me, but that's my personal thing. But, we aren't the same people, and I say that we are becoming warriors. There is a process, so everyone just hold on, be patient. This is a process that we're becoming different. We're making new, more Americans and going back to that American dream and that American exceptionalism, and we have to share that with everyone we come in contact with.
Well, that's true. No rest for the weary, my friend. Maria, thank you so much for the insights that you bring to Raging Elephants Radio. To my audience, it is always such a pleasure to have you. I'm so glad I had a chance to connect with you after a couple of tries. But please remember, anytime you need to get the word out about something, we are an alternative media source that we reach activists, we reach patriots, and anytime you need to get the word out about something, please let me know, and I will gladly put you on my program anytime.
Thank you. Thank you so much for all your work, Heidi. And one more thing, we are going to Washington, D.C. next month. Please look at our website, theremembranceproject.org. And when we went to L.A., we stayed with the Patriot. So we're always looking for support, even if it comes in air miles, flight miles. Please send them our way. Thank you so much, Heidi.
All right. You too, Maria. Have a good one, and we'll talk to you soon. All right, bye-bye. Folks, that was Maria Espinoza-Lyng of theremembranceproject.com. Please go ahead and find her on social networks as well. Find her on Facebook and Twitter and like her pages so that she has an opportunity to reach out and let you know of this kind of activity, of the news that we just brought to you today, of this huge effort that is underway to bring formerly deported illegal aliens back into the country, come hell or high water. Never mind the law. They just want to do it because it feels right. We'll be back right after these messages at the top of the hour.
Your grassroots political organization may